The craziest food I had was definitely like a snail once. This member, she just like had gone up to the mountain and she had like these little snails that she had caught. And I think she cooked them, but it was like so weird. And you're supposed to like suck it out of their little shell. And I remember that my companion, so she came out and gave it to my companion first. And then she went back into going for me, and so my companion like chucked it because she didn't want to eat it. And then she like came back out. She's like, "Oh yeah, so good." And then she came out and she brought one for me, and I was like, "Oh no!" And then she sat down, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm actually gonna have to eat this thing." And so then I was trying to like suck out the snail, and of course like I couldn't, right? I wasn't trying very hard. And then the member like went back in and like got it out for me, and then she's like, "Oh, here you go," and I was like, "Ah!" But I just swallowed really quick, and yeah, luckily that's over. But it was an experience, and at least I can say that I've eaten a snail now, so. So New Year's Eve, everybody parties and drinks. And so we're like walking along, and there's like this drunk guy, and he like totally comes in for like a kiss. He's like on like right next to me, like almost on top of me. And I'm like freaking out. And I just see my companion, Hermana Piquet, such a boss. She like comes over and like whacks him with her umbrella. And he just like looks at her and just like stumbles away. But that was one of my favorite experiences. It was just so funny. And then one time we had to go, I like had dropped my, what's it called, missionary tag? My placa. It had like fallen somehow. And we were about to be late for curfew, but it was like on this other street that we had just done kind of a square to go around because there's this huge field right there. And I was like, "Oh, Hermana, like we have to go back to look for my missionary tag because it's probably out there." And I was like, "Okay, let's just go really quick." I was like, "Let's just cut through this field." And she was like, "I'm not sure about that." I was like, "No, it's going to be okay. Just like, come on." And so we start walking through this field, and literally after like 5 steps, we're both like immersed in mud. And like I have like mud like up to my thighs, and she slipped and fell in the mud, and we're just like, I don't even know what was in there, like crawling all over us. But we were just like freaking out and screaming because we're girls. There's like mud all over us. And then the people that we had just been visiting, I think they heard us. And so they came out. They're like, "Hermanas, what's going on?" And we're like, "Ah." They're like, "What are you doing?" When they saw us walking through this field. And so we like got out miraculously somehow of this like mud pit. And then we like went to their house, and they're like, no, you can't go home until you clean up. So we went back, and yeah, we like cleaned up, and it was really embarrassing because we were covered in mud. And then we were walking, and then we walked home, and I didn't find my tag, but it's okay. I think one of the hardest parts of my mission, well, in my second area in Campana, we were actually teaching someone named Fernando, and we had gone to his house a few times, and we had taught him, and we had invited him to be baptized, and he had accepted, which we were really excited about. And then a few days later, I got this phone call, and we had just had transfers, and my companion had just left the area, and she was my second trainer, and so I was kind of sad. And it was like the very first week, and I like picked up the phone, and I was only like 3 months out, so sometimes my Spanish was a little sketch. It wasn't very good. And then I answered the phone, and Fernando's sister had called us, and she said that Fernando had been shot. And that was just a moment where I think I was just kind of went in shock. And like I had a new companion, like I was trying to like, take care of the area and like teach my companion the area. And I think it was a moment that just really struck me that, life is really short, and that we should definitely take advantage of the opportunities that we have to follow Christ. And I remember we went over the next day to his house, and his mom and his sisters were just so upset, obviously, and just mourning. And we went over there quite a few times in the next few weeks to just try to be there for them. And I think that experience just helped me realize that, we definitely have to take our opportunities to follow Christ now. And we actually talked to his family because he had accepted the invitation to be baptized, and so I asked them if we could do the work for him. And so when I came home, my brother actually went and did the baptism for him, and then we went and did initiatories and did the endowment session for him, with the permission of his family, of course. And I think that I was just so grateful that we had followed the mission. You know how they tell you to invite people to be baptized on the first or second lesson? That was always really hard for me. But in that moment, I was so grateful that I had, because that was probably our third time meeting with him, and we invited him to do it, even though we had just taught about the Book of Mormon. And I was so grateful that we had, because he said yes, and because he said yes, that opened the door to me being able to ask his family if we could do the work for him vicariously. And, you know, I think that we should always, you know, try to follow the rules as best we can, and how they tell us to teach, even though it's hard sometimes, because there's blessings that come from it. And I think that was one of the biggest blessings I ever saw. And I just felt the Spirit so strongly from that. The greatest life lesson I learned on my mission, I think, so I grew up here in Utah, and I'm studying here at BYU, so I haven't really had the opportunity to share the gospel as much as I would have liked to, but I think on the mission I just learned how much joy comes from sharing the gospel. And it says in Preach My Gospel in the first page that you'll experience more joy than you ever had through, you know, bringing souls to Christ, something along those lines. And I think I just felt that joy so strongly on my mission, and I hope that I can always be an example and share the gospel to others, because this gospel is a gospel of joy, and it does bring families together, and it does allow us to be happy. And so I hope that I can always be that example, and that I can follow Christ no matter what. Something else that really helped me on my mission was that it helped me put my priorities straight. Because I think before I would always get lost, like, oh, I have school, I have work, I have 5,000 other things to do, and I'd put God on the last place. And I think my mission really taught me that if you put God first in your life, then He'll put you first. And so even though I might, you know, have 2 tests coming up this week and, you know, like working, but as long as you make sure you're reading your scriptures and praying, and you're going to the temple and going to church, then He'll make sure that you're okay. You might not be the best, and it might not be amazing, but, you know, you'll make it through, and He'll help you. I feel like I definitely learned how to connect more with people, and I feel like one of the greatest things that I learned was just when you go to people's houses, and I feel like at least on my mission and as a missionary, I feel like people really open up their hearts to you, and they would really tell you how they felt. And I think on my mission, I really learned what it was like to mourn with those that mourn, and to know how Christ feels with us. Because obviously Christ knows exactly what we're going through, and He knows how we feel. But on your mission, you'll have so many different experiences where someone will open up to you, and maybe they've just gone through a hard divorce, or maybe someone has just died, or something that you have never experienced and you may never experience, but in that moment you will know exactly how they feel. And you will feel Christ's love for them. And I think that was one of the most amazing things that I felt on my mission, and just being able to feel that love for others. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm most grateful for.